Thanks everyone for joining the webinar, the Practice Comeback Plan. We've got a lot of content we're going to get through, but we've still got a lot of people joining. I can see on the attendee list. So let's give everyone just a moment to settle in and then we'll get started. Thanks. All right, everyone, still a few people joining, but we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for signing up today. This is and attending. This is the first of our 4-part series on the Practice Comeback Plan. Today we intended it to be an overview, and then for the next 3 weeks at the same time, we'll be coming back and diving into each of the 3 phases of what we recommend as a Practice Comeback Plan. With Solution Reach, and we'll give you a good orientation to those today, and come back, and do a deeper dive on those in the subsequent sessions. Huge interest today, which is fantastic and also very scary. This is a really difficult, troubling time. We're so appreciative that you've given us the opportunity to share some thoughts that we have on how you can not only survive the COVID crisis as a business, but come back and really thrive. So wanted to just express your gratitude for having you join today. Before we get into a couple more housekeeping points, just a quick look at who we are and who's talking to you today. I'm Justin Everett. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Solution Reach, and the main attraction here is Addison Reed, who's our Customer Education Manager. If you're a current Solution Reach customer, you've probably seen this beautiful beard many times. This thing has its own social security number. It is quite fantastic. He's also, in addition to a great presenter and just a great resource for our customers and for healthcare practices, he's lived it. He's walked the walk, along the talking the talk in terms of working with patients and his office manager experience. So I think you'll really appreciate his perspective today as we dig in. On the housekeeping front, again, this is a 4-part series. So if you can't make a session, that's okay. You're here, and if you be here today and after, this is a question we get a lot, after the session, we're planning to send a recording to everyone and planning to send slides as well. And the reason we're sending slides along with the recording is you'll see as we go through, and on the screen's an example, there are hyperlinked phrases and sentences and text that you can click and go out, and this is going to be especially helpful for you as a Solution Reach customer. If you work with the platform today, there'll be lots of links to articles and knowledge base content that's in our community that can help you through some of these recommendations that Addison will be making. The other point I want to make is due to just the amount of content we're getting through in this overview session today, we're not planning to do a live Q&A, but that's not to say that you can't ask any questions if you have some. Your GoToWebinar screen should look something like what's on the right here. You can plop a question in there, and we'll work to have somebody follow up with you afterwards as we can. You can do that. If you have support-related questions about your Solution Reach platform and subscription, you can, a different route, and it may be easier for you, is to visit community.solutionreach.com, and you can click on My Support there and just have access to a whole wealth of resources that Addison and the rest of our customer education team have created. So wanted to mention that. Going into today, so 4 things we want to accomplish. This is kind of the 4-bullet agenda here. One is sharing some thoughts on what we believe are going to be keys to success during this downturn, and again, not just surviving it, but actually thriving on the other end of this thing. Second, we'll go through what we call phase 1. These are the things you need to do right now, the really urgent pieces. Second is moving into a recovery phase if you're closed and ready to reopen or ready to begin business as usual, whatever that means now. And then third, the growth phase. How do you use what you're implementing in phases 1 and 2 to go and thrive moving forward? And so, as we're thinking about what are going to be the things that are going to set you apart coming out of this, the Solution Reach view on this is really in line with a good article I read from the Harvard Business Review, and it says that during downturns, businesses that tend to perform well coming out and have the highest growth rates, they have 3 common features. One, you've already done. The fact that you're here and the fact that you're participating today shows that you're ready to act early and get all over this thing and figure out, even here on April 8th, how do I begin to formulate my practice comeback plan? Second is taking that long-term perspective. So not just what do I do now, but what do I do in the future and going forward. And third is focusing on growth rather than cost cutting. And I think what you're going to see today and what you're probably already experiencing in your practice is that you're being your hands being forced to do some things differently in terms of how you care for patients and how you communicate. And let's think about, what if that is going to stick? What if that is probably actually an improvement for how you operate your business going forward? And so the challenge is, the question I'd love for you to, really 2 questions for you to keep in your mind as you're going through the content today and you're thinking about your plan. One is, how do you emerge as a stronger practice than before this started? A couple of months ago, you were what you were. How do you actually come out of this even stronger? And I think if you think with that lens, you may find some great ideas. And second, with the competitive hat on, this is totally an opportunity to separate yourself. Everyone's in this same pool together. Well, it's are you acting early? Yes. Are you thinking with a long-term perspective? Are you focused on growth? This is taking these recommendations and going and applying them and thinking through how they really can set you apart in the future is a great way to approach the content here. And with that, we'll start to talk about this phase 1 content, these set of recommendations, some of which you may have already done. I hope the answer is yes to some of these. If not, these are the things you want to do now, and that's capital NOW. You want to do these things now. This is urgent. And with that, I'll turn it over to Addison and let him start walking through some of the recommendations.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Thank you, all of you, for being present on this webinar, and thank you for all that you're doing to help the patients that you're serving right now. I really appreciate that. One quick thing to cover, or just to reiterate that Justin, you already touched on, is we have a mixture of people on this webinar, of Solution Reach customers and non-Solution Reach customers. So a lot of these principles, we've decided to make them and design them in a way that they still apply whether or not you use our platform or products. And this first one totally applies. It's deactivate any automated messages you have going out. Now, this might look like appointment reminders. It might look like recall messages. It's up to you to determine the types of messaging that you want to temporarily disable when we're in this kind of, this first phase of what you need to do right now. And the reason for doing this is most likely your schedule is in a little bit of flux. It might be changing from day to day. You might only be seeing emergency patients. So this can help reduce any confusion for your patients, as well as reduce any confusion for your staff with what's on the schedule and who needs to be seen and the type of treatment that they need to be seen for. On this next slide, again, like Justin called out, a lot of you are probably already doing these things, but if you aren't, we highly recommend you do some method of tracking any canceled appointments. Many of you have been shut down temporarily or gone on offering modified procedures or services for a bit of time. And it's a high likelihood that some of your patients have had to, you've had to cancel some of your patients' appointments. And you want to make sure that you have this list, because this list is very valuable to you as a provider or as a practice, because we know at some point things are going to return to some form of normal, right? And having this list is going to arm you with a very powerful tool for filling your schedule when that time comes. When it's time to reopen, you can rely on this list of people that you may have had to shift appointments around, and you can use this to fill all those empty holes in your schedule as you move to reopen. The next thing that you want to do, leverage two-way texting. Texting is the most preferred method of communication by patients. I've worked with some different doctors during my time at practices, and I completely understand that a lot of them may have this mindset of, we really like using postcards or doing phone calls. We feel like it adds a personal touch, and that's a great sentiment to have at the forefront of your mind. However, patients want texting. Give them what they want. This is something that they prefer, and they're more likely to respond as you reach out to them and communicate via text. Using text methods also allows you and your practice to respond to more of your patients with greater efficiency. You can often cover a few different text message threads, if you will, at the same time, versus you can usually only take one phone call at a time. So it's really important to find a way to leverage text messaging for your practice. This next one is, it's important to let patients know how they can reach you in case of emergency, whether they need to come in or whatever the situation might be. And again, leverage text, leverage email, leverage social media or your website. You can even change the message on your voicemail so that when they call in, they know what they need to do. And another thing that's incredibly important that I'm sure many of you have already figured out is it's really important to help your patients understand what an emergency is. Now, we all can probably think of a handful of patients that they think everything is an emergency. And unfortunately, that isn't the case, and we can't quite accommodate them at this current time, most likely. We have to have a way to triage and prioritize the patients who are actually experiencing an emergency of some kind, and make sure that they are the ones that are seen and treated. And so using this, using different methods to let your patients know how they can contact you, as well as setting the tone of what defines an emergency, will help your practice function more efficiently at this time. Another way that you can reach out and be a beacon of information for your patients is to send newsletters. Now, some of you, maybe you've never sent a newsletter to your patient base. That's okay. This is a time for change. If you are pretty good about sending newsletters out, maybe you need to increase the frequency at which you send these out. Your patients are looking to you as a trusted source of information. We all know there's a lot of different places that they can go for all the information they might want to find about COVID-19, symptoms, things like that. But there are also, unfortunately, a lot of bad resources that may not be sharing correct information. This is a chance for you to stand out to your patients as that trusted source. And you can use this method of sending newsletters or other communications. Maybe you need to send them to different groups. Maybe you typically send things to your entire patient base. Maybe you need to get a little more specialized, and we'll talk about that in just a moment.
Hey, Addison,
yeah.
Could I interrupt real quick? I want to check. We've had a couple people saying that they're having some audio issues. If you're able to hear me, and I hope everyone does this, will you just quickly drop a "we can hear you" in the questions, please? You can continue forward. I just want to make sure we're all right. We got lots of "I can hear you." Go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks for bearing with us.
I'll work with people individually. We've had a couple of people. Go ahead, Addison.
Yeah, you bet. So another thing is things are going to change. The information is constantly changing and updating regarding COVID-19, and it may be unique to your area, right? Maybe to your geographic location, to the types of services you provide. Send up-to-date information for your area or for your particular situation out to your patients. And
Addison, I just wanted to make a comment that I think this is a great recommendation. I love this, and I hope everyone on the call is and on the webinar is doing this. You and I were joking the other day that I feel like I've gotten updates from everyone, every company with whom I've ever done business. I collect vinyl records, and the subscription service that I work with for that, and in Omaha, Nebraska is sending me COVID updates. I'm getting updates from all kinds of places. I ordered some picture frames a while back, and that company's sending me COVID updates. But it's all over the place. But the ones that I do pay attention to are those from my healthcare providers, and I've gotten a few. And like you said, I think this is such an opportunity to be not only a trusted source for information, but to just keep top of mind with me and keep in contact and show that you're there for me and thinking about me and what's a scary time for everyone.
You're absolutely right. And that's the thing is, with some of our customers who reached out, and, because of how their practice has been affected, they've had to shut down completely in some situations. And
oh yeah, we Addison, that first week, some of you, I know some of you have probably taken advantage of this. I hope so. We sent at Solution Reach alone, just in that first week, that was that March 16th week when it really, all the communication really started happening in the U.S. Solution Reach sent, I think 63 million COVID-related communications, and we have customers all over the country. But that was like the attendance day. It's scary, but it was also exciting that we could help that much. But just the amount of communication that was going on was really staggering and really interesting to see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you said, this is a chance, if for some reason your office, you feel really kind of hamstrung, right? You feel like, man, we only see one patient a day, depending on your situation, or maybe you're completely shut down. You aren't seeing any patients at all. You still have opportunities to be in the forefront of your patient's mind using methods like this, whether it's, text, newsletters, social media, whatever it might be. You still have ways to reach out to your patients and let them know that you're there. You need to stay up to date. This probably sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, but you got to stay up to date with COVID-19. Things are changing and moving and grooving, every single day, sometimes on an hourly basis. So find resources that you deem the most reliable and most valuable. This is a list that we thought, conveyed the most reliable information. You see, the World Health Organization on there, the CDC, Johns Hopkins. Use these resources to populate your newsletters or your outbound communications to your patients. This can provide you with the content that you can send to those patients. Now, we talked previously about sending those communications to more specific patient groups. Now, in the Solution Reach platform, you make use of the groups feature to really, filter down and get really into the details of who you want to send messages to. Whatever system you're using, make use of that type of functionality, because you might be sending messages that are appropriate to your entire patient base, but you may also want to specialize or specify your communications to different groups of patients. Maybe it's patients who are still on your schedule, or maybe it's patients that have a high risk of being, sorry, lost my train of thought. Patients who have a high risk of being, really affected by COVID-19. You may want to provide some additional information for them to help them keep safe and stay safe. This again, yeah.
Addison, just to chime in and let you take a sip of water, my friend. We've had a number of people join since the intro. Just wanted to remind everyone, these blue phrases, these underlined blue phrases, these are links. So we're planning to send everyone a recording, not only a recording of the webinar, but also the slides from the webinar. And when these slides come through, you should be able to click on those. If you're a Solution Reach customer, clicking on this link will take you out to our knowledge-based articles that actually walk you through how to set up these types of groups that Addison was mentioning.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And again, this is going to help you provide just a little bit of more, a more personalized touch. This is how you can do that for those patients still. Telehealth. This is a big topic right now. And there are some different things that you need to be aware of and educate yourself around. OCR and CMS have changed some of their policies and their regulations. And there's options now to use different technology that haven't been available previously. So do everything you can to document everything involved with telehealth, stay up to date, do your research. The ways that you can use services like Solution Reach to help communicate this type of information or these types of services to your patients is you can use things like SR Conversations. That's our two-way texting feature to get the message out and let patients know that they can be seen for a telehealth appointment. Maybe you create a digital intake experience using SR Intake, or maybe you use SR Huddle, which is also part of SR Conversations, so that you and your staff members can stay connected, whether in the practice or even outside of the practice. That can be accessed, remotely as well.
Addison, something that I mentioned at the beginning is that, again, this is a 4-part series, and we've got a lot we want to get through today, just kind of the run through of the full 3 phases, but we want to come back next week and spend more time of this. If you're able to attend that session, or make sure you're keeping an eye out for the recordings, because there's a lot of questions, of course, about telehealth right now and what you can and can't do and what doesn't qualify. And we want to spend a good bit of time next week doing a deeper dive here. So I just wanted to preview that for everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. All right, so sending pre-visit instructions. Now, pre-visit instructions, the way that we kind of term these is messages that are going out at the same time as an appointment reminder. You have patients that are still on the schedule. You may want to send some extra instructions along with them. Maybe in this case, you're using it as a pre-screening method. You're asking them if they're experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms. That'd be great information to know before they arrive at the practice, especially if you follow it up with, please contact us, let us know if you're experiencing any of these things before you come in. You want to keep your patients safe and healthy, and you want to keep your staff safe and healthy as well. You can also leverage text for payments. This is a great example of a message I know one of my providers sent me recently. I owed $25 for my appointment. They sent me a great little link that I was able to hop into and pay right from my phone. It was extremely convenient for myself, and I'm sure for the provider as well, because this reduces face-to-face interactions that need to happen with payments. Honestly, it even reduces the need for me as a patient to pick up the phone and give them my card number over the phone. That's just a lengthy and quite frankly an annoying process. I loved having this convenience available. So if you're a Solution Reach customer, SR Pay is a great option for this. If you're using some other service, make use of it. This is a great time to let your patients know that this service exists, and then to actually use it. Make use of it to collect those payments as needed. And we've talked a lot about things that you can do to help improve the lives of your patients while you're in this first phase, right? This kind of things you should be doing right now. There's also inevitably some time to sharpen the axe, to hone your own skills. Solution Reach offers Solution Teach University, and it's completely free to Solution Reach customers. You can get in there and get certified in things like the basics of patient relationship management or healthcare communication. Whether or not you're a Solution Reach customer, find ways to educate yourself and to, again, sharpen that axe and hone your skills so that you can be a better provider or better staff that are more equipped to serve patients when the time has come to come back to full swing of your practice. You also want to look into some financial resources potentially for your own practice or your business, as well as for your staff. I know, Justin, you wanted to mention a few things on this particular resource, right?
Yeah, I certainly did. Thanks, Addison. So, I know many of you are already all over this, right? This is, opportunities to look into, how the CARES Act applies to you, and even some of these loan programs from the SBA. There's $400 billion available in forgivable loans right now, I believe. What I wanted to mention to you guys is a partnership that we were developing with the service Skip, and being that all this SBA stuff is, programs are getting added and changed and adjusted, it feels like on a daily basis. I included this link in the webinar. It's the helloskip.com one at the bottom. I'd encourage you, whether it's right now or you want to jot it down or come in afterwards when you get the slides, go visit their site. And go visit that page. They're offering personal assistance to anyone to help apply for the programs and even ongoing support, letting you know, helping you work through what your options are, monitoring the loan status with the government, and just any opportunities over the next couple of months that comes through. So I wanted to mention that. And the last point here in this phase one section is, kind of related to that, but just let's this probably goes without saying, but this is a time to make sure we're really investing our time and money wisely. And there are things, recommendations. I think when I did a count, we've got something like 26 in this webinar today, but there are things that Solution Reach doesn't do that you could be looking at it, whether it's, we've talked about how important it is to communicate well. Email, text, all that is great, but what about your website? That should be a tool for you right now. Even your social media presence, if you're able to get out and strengthen that and better communicate. And I think the more communication we can have right now, the better. So what we've shared here is a few of the partners that we work with: Health Grades, Healthline, Postcard Mania. You can go to the Solution Reach website on our marketplace and request more information from each of these partners that we work with, and just put some thought into, again, maybe this is a time to invest in some of these additional tools. So that's the phase one. That's the stuff that hopefully we caught you most of the way through that. Hopefully those are things you're already doing, but maybe hopefully some good ideas for things that you haven't done yet, but help you get through this, initial survival mode. But what we want to move into now is, let's talk about, and we intentionally don't put a timeline on this, because who knows when are we ready to reopen? Could be different by geography, could be different by the type of practice you are. When are we ready to really fully reopen and get back into this? And Addison's got some really good recommendations for how you start to move into the next phase of coming back here.
Yeah, Justin, you're absolutely right. The landscape is constantly changing on this, and the only somewhat fixed landmark that we have is we know at some point the practices are going to open back up and again return to that that new normal of some kind. And as we prepare and with everything in that first phase for that stage, or excuse me, for that new landmark of being open, right? It's important that we create a safe and healthy environment, not just for patients, but also for your staff. And this goes from the physical side all the way to the emotional as well, whether it's making sure your treatment rooms and your practice as a whole is deep cleaned and things like that. It's fully stocked. Even if something has AA batteries, make sure the batteries are fresh in it, whatever it might be. Make sure you're ready to roll. But on the emotional side as well, for your staff, this might mean things like increasing the number of staff meetings you have to make sure everyone is on the same page. Might mean increasing the number of one-on-one meetings with individual staff members to make sure that they're doing okay, that they are getting their needs addressed, that they're doing all right. And where applicable, we recommend being reasonably flexible with schedules for staff and for patients alike. You got to make sure this is a safe and healthy environment first and foremost as you reopen. And as you reopen to be able to offer full services once more, it's really important to determine the patient priority, right? In the stage that we're in right now, or the phase that we're in right now, it's very much who is an emergency situation for a lot of you out there. As you reopen, you still need to have some mindset of prioritization. So the patients that you already have on the schedule, we recommend keeping them there as best you can, so that you don't have to shuffle those down the road into oncoming days or weeks. But you also need to develop a priority for rescheduling patients. And you can look at that list that we talked about in the first phase, that list of patients who you happen to need to cancel their appointment because you had to go on offering modified services or procedures. You might also want to think about dedicating specific days to treat high-risk patients. Maybe you also extend your hours. Maybe you work from later hours in the day, or maybe you open up days that you weren't open on before. Maybe it's Saturdays, maybe it's even Sundays. Take that on as something to think about and determine what would work best for your patients and for your practice as you come back and bounce back. When you're open, you have to let patients know that you're open. We talked a little bit about some of the different methods in the previous phase, but make use of text, make use of email, light up and blow up your social media pages, your Facebook or whatever things you're using, your website. Get the message out to let patients know that they can start trickling back in and being seen for whether it's routine care or continued emergency care or even elective services, whatever that might mean for your particular practice. If you can, we highly recommend including some sort of messaging or links that allow patients to schedule or request appointments at their own convenience. That, again, improves the experience for them and it takes a little bit off your plate as providers and staff. That it's a few less interactions you have to do over the phone. Now, with getting patients actually on the schedule, again, we don't know what this new normal is really going to look like until we're in the moment. It might mean things like adding some extra time between appointments to fully or to more thoroughly clean and disinfect rooms. A lot of you out there, you have great cancellation policies that are focused on reducing cancellations and no-shows. It might be a good time to be a little more flexible with those. Your patients as well. I'm a patient, Justin's a patient, and it really would go a long way for us to think, how would we want our own providers to treat us or to be understanding with our particular situation? So we recommend you take a look at that on a case-by-case basis with your patients. This next one is absolutely huge because it involves, it's very closely tied with filling that schedule and keeping patients on the schedule. You need to have a reminder cadence that works, that functions, and that is backed by data. This is backed by data. We have gone through all of our messaging, and we have determined that if you have your reminders, your appointment reminders set up to be sent out 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours prior to your appointment, this results in a 156% increase in confirmation rate. If you're a practice that has trouble with confirmation rate, try this out. It's backed by data. And our customers that are implementing it right now are seeing huge improvements to their confirmation rate. And this is a great subtle way to, again, improve that confirmation rate and improve the amount of appointments that are still kept without you having to be really, really hard and strict about a cancellation policy to help that number. It's a great subtle way to do that. In the first phase, we talked about those pre-visit instructions. And when you reopen, you may need to update those pre-visit instructions. Or if you decided to not create any during the first phase, now may be the time to create them. And again, this can be used as a great pre-screening tool. You can ask patients to kind of, self-reflect and see if they're experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms, because you definitely want to have them contact the practice before they come in.
Addison, I wanted to quickly mention here, because we did have some people continue to join. I know we mentioned it once or twice. Part of that, we intentionally put this in this section here, knowing full well that it's in phase 1 as well, because it is a matter of timing when you want to add or update that. But what I wanted to remind everyone is when you get this afterwards, if you're a Solution Reach customer, you'll be able to click on those links to either create instructions for the first time or just edit what you have in place. So you'll be able to follow that link and go to the knowledge base article and see how to quickly adjust that. And I think you'll find it really helpful.
Absolutely. And just in the same way that this can act as a pre-screening process, using ideally doing something to modify your intake process to help with pre-screening. This is another great way to help your patients and your staff stay safe and healthy. For SR intake customers, we have created a COVID-19 questionnaire that can be added to the intake packet. And what's so great about that is you can send those intake packets out to customers or to your patients right to their phones. They can fill those out before they even arrive at your practice. They can fill it out in the comfort of their home. They can fill it out in the parking lot right before they come in for their appointment. But that way, if you can streamline this process, patients can fill that information out. You can use it to pre-screen and perform further action from there if necessary. But as patients actually come into the practice and they've already filled this out, that reduces the wait time for them, and it allows you to potentially see even more patients throughout the day.
Thanks, Addison. And again, this is the Addison water break. But I'm joking. But one thing I want to mention as we move into phase 3 here, this is where we talked about the urgency, the things you do now, and then phase 2 is about getting back on track. You want to get off to a really good start. Make sure you're announcing that you're open and doing all of those recommendations. But as we look at what's this going to look like going forward, everything's kind of done. Addison's referred to a couple of times this notion of the new normal. Well, what's that going to look like? Well, we don't know. But what we can predict is that the practices that are really going to thrive, and again, the challenge we issued at the beginning of the webinar was, how can you actually be better in the future going forward based on some of these things? Well, one, the practices that are going to thrive, one, they'll remain really focused on the safety of not just their patients but their staff as well, and making those tighter bonds and connections. That's something that just show behind the Solution Reach curtain a little bit that we're going through as a company right now as well. That's Addison and I. We work on the same team. We meet probably more frequently than we did when we were in the office together, and just make sure we're always touching base and having that safety and that constant communication. And going forward, I think that's something that's going to remain. Second, the practices that'll thrive will continue to provide their patients with better access to care and more convenient ways to connect, whether that's through telehealth and the different ways that it continues to evolve, or just as simple as a patient being able to text you and have a way to reach out, and more, access to care from the comfort of their home, even going forward, I think is really going to stick. And our hands are being forced here a little bit as we're going through this, but I think there's some really big positives to come. And then the third is the practices that'll thrive will really keep an open-minded approach to adopting and experimenting with some of these new technologies and tools. We say there's no more we've always done it this way, or this is the way we've always worked. That this is a new world. This is a new normal. And I think these three principles are three that will really guide and set apart the practices who don't just survive this, but actually thrive going forward. And I know, Addison, you've got some good recommendations here on how to achieve that.
Absolutely. And like you said, Justin, this is, a lot of you out there, or some of you out there probably feel like you're ahead of the curve. You've already adopted some of these newer technologies. You're providing some of these new treatment methods for your patients. Some of you right now especially might feel like, wow, we really need to get in gear and move forward on some things. And, like Justin has reiterated, our purpose of this, providing this webinar and all these different resources is not to scold you or in any way make you feel bad, but we want to empower you to become even better than you were pre-COVID-19. We want you to again thrive and get past the point that you were at before this all happened, so that you can be even more successful coming out of all of this. And a great way to do that, again, we've talked about in a few different phases now, but encourage two-way texting at every touch point you possibly can. Whether you're sending out emails and letting patients know, or texting them directly to let them know, making them aware on social media or updating your website, whatever it might be, do everything you can, pull every lever to let them know they can text, post a sign in your practice, or update your voicemail on your phone saying something like, hey, we know you're calling in trying to reach us. Did you know you could text us? That goes a long way. All these different methods do, and they work together to help patients realize they have a more convenient method and their preferred method to contact you. The next thing is to set up a paperless check-in process. Now, beyond helping to save the trees, which is a great effort, this is a fantastic way to help reduce the spread of COVID-19 now and moving forward. SR intake for Solution Reach customers is a great way to implement this type of process in your practice. We talked about it before. You can send the intake packet right to a patient's phone. They can fill it out before they even arrive at the practice. And you can host, if you're not a Solution Reach customer, maybe you decide to host those check-in forms on your website, and you decide to manually send that link out to patients. Whatever you decide to go with, whatever you decide to do, we highly recommend you go the route of paperless check-in, because it'll improve flexibility for your patients and for yourselves, and it'll allow you to work in a more agile manner. The next thing that we have here is implementing some method where patients can take advantage of online scheduling. My favorite example of this is when I go to fill up my car with gas. It's been a long time since I've had to walk in, pay the attendant, and walk back out to my car. That's not convenient for me. I like to be able to arrive at the pump, hop out, I put my card in, I pay, I fill up, and I go. That makes it so much more convenient. This is the same type of principle. Make it more convenient for patients. With SR Schedule, patients can request appointments, and you still have full control over allowing those requests to happen. This isn't just a free-for-all where patients get to see your schedule and say, yep, I want that time, and I want to be seen for this appointment, and I want to see this doctor. You still have control over approving those. So they are just requests. But whatever you decide to go with for online scheduling, Again, blast it out. Make it known to all your patients. Use text and email and your social media sites. Let them know it exists. The next one is it's a great time. It may not sound like it right now or even in this thriving stage, but you can strengthen your online reviews. You can rely on patients that are seeing the way you are interacting with them and treating them right now. And you can ask them to share their experiences. You don't even have to say, please leave us a review. You can say, hey, Mrs. Jones, we had to see you a few times, with some of our modified services, our modified, availability. Would you mind sharing your experience online? We think a lot of people would value from hearing your voice. And that's a great way to both empower your patients, but also to start building that online presence and helping it to become a lot more strong than it ever has been. Whether it's using a survey to do that, or you're sending those invitations out via email or text, you can even incentivize your team. And you say, okay, front office and back office staff, we're gonna have a competition. Whoever can send out the most invitations for customers, we're gonna give you 2 tickets to a movie, or maybe we're gonna buy you lunch, whatever it might be. You can also, again, add physical signs, hang them up in your practice. Let your patients know that they can go and leave you an online review. That feedback is valuable to you. We have created the SR success formula as well. And this is training that can be completed through our Solution Teach University that we previously mentioned. This shows you how to do things like reduce your no-shows and cancellations, replace and reschedule appointments that inevitably cancel at some point. So it tells you what to do with those, how to increase your appointments and how to increase your patients. And this content was designed in a way that it still applies whether or not you are a Solution Reach customer. These principles still hold true, and they hold true regardless of the industry that you're in as well. It doesn't matter if you're a medical office or a vision office or even a dental office. They still apply, and they can still help your practice be successful and improve the experience for your patients. Okay, I think this
So
next
I wanted to jump in here. Yeah, I'm going to launch a poll for everyone real quick, and let's see how long it takes to launch here. Hopefully it'll launch pretty quickly. Go to webinar. It's taking a few moments. But as it starts to launch, wanted to make you guys aware of some different assets that we have that go along with this practice comeback plan. So gotten a few more questions about getting slides and recordings, and we're certainly going to do that and make sure that you have those. But we've also put together a few additional resources that hopefully can help you out right now. One of those is what we're calling the Practice Comeback Playbook. It's about 30 pages long. It goes through a lot of the different pieces that are out there, or that we walked through today, but gives some more in-depth information on some of those, and what you'll be seeing over the next few weeks in the deep dive sessions into the different phases of the plan as well. The second is we've created printable checklists for all of these phases that walk through some of the same pieces that are in the playbook and that Addison mentioned that just could be helpful. You can download it, print it, and literally check things off. And then the third thing I wanted to mention is you can get information from us on a personalized comeback plan. So kind of walking through what you need, what specifically you want to do in your goals. We're happy to have someone work with you on that, and kind of what we're calling a comeback coach, so to speak. So any of those that you'd like to have access to, please check those boxes in the poll. I see a lot of you guys are doing it. I'll leave it open for just a couple more moments. I know it's kind of go to webinar is kind of slow with this, but we'll work to make sure that you get those after the webinar today and then going forward as well. So I'll leave that up for just a couple more moments. Addison, in the meantime, there are a couple of questions around 333 and just asking, hey, what does that mean again? Do you mind touching on that again real quick?
Absolutely. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about from my time as an office manager. I wish I would have known this type of information. So 333, to put it in a nutshell, this specifically refers to appointment reminders. And this means sending them out 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours prior to your patient's appointment. And what this does is it results in a 156% increase in confirmation rates, which is absolutely what you need as you return to full availability for your patients. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. We figured that out based on all of the data that we've had for the past 20 years, and it's proven true with new customers even.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just seeing how the 333 compared to 1 week before, 2 days out, 3 hours. We tried all of these different combinations, and 333 really does seem to be the one that's had the most impact and gets our recommendation, how we work with you guys. So another thing I wanted to mention is we do, again, today was the first of a 4-part series. We'll have these upcoming sessions on the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th. Again, if you can't attend, that's fine. We're happy to send you the recordings. I know some of you, someone mentioned in the comments hoping we could do the webinars faster, and we would love that too. But what we would like to make sure you get in the meantime is that playbook and some of those other resources to go ahead and help you move faster, or getting you lined up with a comeback coach as well. That would be helpful. From there, would love for you, if you haven't, asked questions, if you haven't gone out to the community website, community.solutionreach.com. If you're a customer, feel free, and you have a question or want some more information on something, send an email to community@solutionreach.com. So Addison and the rest of our customer education team, they receive these emails and can help get you the answers that you need. If you're not a customer, and we know there are many of you on the line as well, and you want to learn a little bit more, use the sales email we have, sales@solutionreach.com. Again, happy to get you more information and work with you there. And we also have a phone number for that, 800-995-8444. So want to again thank you for attending today, and not just attending today and your quickness to act around your comeback plan, but just a broader thank you for what you're doing for me as a patient, for Addison as a patient, for my family, everything that you're doing for our communities. It's so appreciated, and I hope you're feeling that appreciation from others as well. I know I speak for the entire Solution Reach team when I say we're really thankful and grateful to be partnered with many of you, and have you support us, and hopefully we can support you as well. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'll leave the contact information on the screen for just a few moments. That'll conclude the webinar today, and we'll hope to see you guys next week. Thanks, and have a wonderful evening.